Okay, so today we are going to learn the last two methods of how to solve a quadratic equation. We learned the quadratic formula and by factoring. Today we're going to do the square roots first, and then we're going to go over and cover solving by graphing. Okay. This method is the easiest one, but it does have to be set up in the form of ax squared plus c, meaning there's no middle x term. If there's no middle x term, then you are able to do this every single time. If there is an x term, you have to do a different method. Okay, so step number one here is going to be isolate the x squared, meaning that leave x squared on one side of the equation and move everything else to the other side. Okay, and then the next step is going to be to square root both sides. Square root. So square root the x squared and square root whatever numbers on the right side. Okay, and the last step, as is the last step of all of your methods, is to write your answer in a solution set. X equals something comma something, whatever those numbers are. Okay. All right. Number one, just move everything away from the x squared. So this negative 10 is on the same side, so we got to put plus 10 and plus 10. So that's going to leave you with x squared is equal to negative 1 plus 10 is going to give you positive 9. I'm sorry, that's x squared, not x squared, right? And then now all you got to do is take the square root of x squared and the square root of 9. And when you take the square root of something squared, the square root and the squared cancel out. So now you're just left with x by itself is equal to the square root of 9, which is going to give you 3. Okay? So x equals 3. One thing I forgot to tell you, back up here, when you write your answer, you are going to have the same number. One of them is going to be a positive, one's going to be a negative, okay? So what I mean by that is when you get your answer here, like we did in our 3 here, what you're going to have is you're going to have a plus or a minus 3, plus or minus. So you are going to have still two answers. Just one of them is going to be positive, one's going to be negative. So your answer is x equals, fancy brackets, negative 3, comma, positive 3, okay? So if you have this method where you do not have a middle x term, it's always going to be the same number, one of them positive, one of them negative. Okay. All right. Number 2 here, we are going to divide by negative 6 on both sides. So that's going to isolate that x squared is equal to negative 150 divided by negative 6. That's going to give you positive 25. And now go to the next step and take the square root of both sides. Okay. Remember the square root and the squared cancel out, so now you got x equals, and then the square root of 25 is going to give you 5. And remember that is plus or minus 5. So your solution set is going to be x equals, fancy brackets, negative 5, comma, positive 5. Just like that, okay? All right, so you are going to get the same number using this method, one of them positive, one of them negative. All right, number 3, last one, just so you're equipped to solve the rest of the problems on this page. Remember, if there's a fraction, we always want to multiply both sides by whatever the denominator is. So multiply by 2 and multiply by 2, and then you'll divide by the numerator. But in this case, the numerator is 1. And then you'll multiply by that numerator, and but in this case it is 1, okay, so you don't have to do anything there, okay? All right, so after you multiply by 2, the 2's cancel out here, so now you just got 1x squared is equal to 2 times 50, which is 100. And then now the last step is to take the square root of both. Remember the square root and the squares cancel out, so x is equal to plus or minus 10. It's 10 times 10 is 100. Okay, so your solution set is going to be x equals, fancy brackets, negative 10, comma, positive 10. Close fancy brackets. Okay, so this side of the worksheet should be fairly easy for you. Take about 3 to 5 minutes to go ahead and work on some on your own, and then we'll go over graphing on the back. Okay, so now we're going to go over graphing. This method is also fairly easy as long as you got numbers or the graph passes exactly through the x-axis. Other than that, you'll probably have to use your calculators, and we'll go over that at a different time. But for right now, let's go ahead and do it by hand. Step number 1, what you want to do is you want to use the 5 simplest x values. So you're going to use negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. And depending on if you have your vertex or not, you might have to add a few either on the negative side or on the positive side, and we'll get to that here in a sec, okay? So graph the points and connect the all the points to create a parabola, okay? So remember, squared function or quadratic function always makes a that's not a parabola. Parabola. There we go, parabola. Okay, and then what you want to locate is, remember these, rocks, okay? Rocks is where the graph crosses the x-axis. Remember, rock stands for roots, zeros, x-intercepts, and solutions. All those words are synonyms of one another. Okay, so your solutions are your roots, are your zeros, are your x-intercepts, okay? And then you're going to write your solution in step number 4 as a solution set. X equals the first one, or the very left one, and then the very right one, okay? Smallest and then biggest, okay? All right, good. What I want to do here is number 1, 2, and 3. I need to change these. I apologize for making you change them, but let's cross these out. Cross this out. We're going to put x squared, and we're going to put minus 4x, leave that the same, but then we're going to change this to minus 5, because then this one here does not pass directly through the x-axis, and I really want you to see how to locate your solutions by doing graphing by hand, okay? And before we start on that one, let's go ahead and go to number 2, and we're going to cross out number 2 as well, and we're going to put this as negative x squared plus 2x plus 3, okay? So make sure you switch that one. Negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. And the last one, I apologize, we have to change this one as well. All we're changing is the minus 5 to minus 4, so x squared minus 4, okay? Just like that. All right, so going back up, I'm going to do number 1 and number 2 and 3 are for you to do, okay? So on your x values here, let's go ahead and just write your negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2, okay? In this middle box here, this middle table, what you're going to do is you're going to use your function that we just rewrote. You're going to use x squared minus 4x minus 5. And all you're going to do is you're going to rewrite this every time so it's easy for you to plug it in and find the answer, okay? So on your negative 2, what it looks like is y equals, and then in parentheses, you're going to put negative 2. Make sure you put parentheses, because negative 2 squared is different if the negative's inside or outside the parentheses. Okay, then minus 4, parentheses, negative 2, and then minus 5, and whatever that is equal to. So negative 2 squared is going to give you positive 4, and then negative 4 times negative 2 gives you positive 8. So positive 4 plus positive 8 is going to give you 12, and then minus 5 is going to give you 7. Okay, so your coordinates here are going to be negative 2, comma 7, your x, comma your y. Okay, same thing here. Y is equal to 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 5. Let's see what that is equal to. 1 squared is going to give you 1, and then minus 4 times 1, so that's going to be 1 minus 4 is going to give you negative 3. Then negative 3 minus 5 is going to give you negative 8. All right. Then we got y equals, in parentheses, we got 0 squared, then minus 4 times 0, and then minus 5, okay? Oh, boys and girls, I apologize. We messed up here, didn't we? Or I messed up here. This is supposed to be a negative 1. I'm sorry about that. So that means this needs to cross out. Man. Okay, so negative 1 squared is going to give you positive 1. Then negative 4 times negative 1 is going to give you positive 4. So 1 plus 4 is going to be 5, and then 5 minus 5 is going to give you 0. Sorry about that. Okay, now when you plug in 0 for your x, 0 squared minus 0, so these are going to cross out because 0 times anything is 0. And then minus 5, that'll give you negative 5, okay? So your coordinate up top here is going to be negative 1, comma 0, and your coordinate we just found is 0, comma negative 5, okay? All right, next one, we got y equals 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 5. Now this, we just figured that out. That is going to be negative 8. Okay, so your coordinate is going to be 1, comma negative 8. Okay, and the last one here is going to be y is equal to, in parentheses, 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 5. And what is that equal to? 2 squared is going to give you 4, and then negative 8 times 2 is going to give you negative 8. So 4 minus 8 is going to give you negative 4, and then negative 4 minus 5 is going to give you negative 9. And notice that we do not have a vertex yet. 2 comma negative 9, because none of the y's repeat. Okay, so we do know that it's kind of getting smaller, so we're going to add one number here. We're going to add a 3 at the bottom. Make this y is equal to 3 squared minus 4 times 3, and then minus 5. Okay, what is that going to mean? Hopefully it equals negative 8. 3 squared is going to give you 9. Negative 4 times 3 is going to give you negative 12. So that's going to be 9 minus 12 is going to give you negative 3. And then negative 3 minus 5, that is going to give you negative 8. There we go. Now we know we got our vertex because we got a y that's repeating. So 3 comma negative 8. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to graph all of these points and see where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, so negative 2 comma 7 is going to be negative 2 comma 7. And then negative 1 comma 0 is right here. 0 comma negative 5. We got 1 comma negative 8. 2 comma negative 9. And then we did one more, 3 comma negative 8. And so notice how it's going to go flip back up, so now we know we got a vertex. And you can go ahead and just label these points now to create a good parabola, because we know that it's just a mirror image of all the other points. So you can go ahead and label all those, or graph all those. Okay, and then create a parabola. And what your solutions are these coordinates here, whatever those coordinates are, or not whatever those numbers are. Okay, so x equals, fancy brackets, this left number here is going to be at negative 1. Okay, so x equals negative 1, comma, our other, where it crosses the x-axis, which is in this case is going to be 5. 5, and then you can close the fancy brackets. Okay, so negative 1 comma 5, that is going to be your solution set. And notice how whenever the y is going to be, wherever the y is 0, that is where your x-intercepts are. Okay, so on your graph, or on your table, you got negative 1 comma 0, but this one we just kind of graphed by hand and we just mirrored it, so we don't have it on our table. But if you look at your table, wherever the y is 0, that's going to be your solution sets. Okay, I hope this helps. Have fun.